It is the Ryan episode, an NHL draft prospect named Ryan, the longest tenured Oiler named Ryan, and Xavier Bourgault. We'll have all that and much more on today's episode of Locked On Oilers.
You're Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On Oilers podcast. I'm your host and former Oilers game day producer, Brett Holden. On today's episode, like we mentioned at the start, there's a ton of Ryans on today's episode. Ryan Chesley is today's NHL draft prospect that we will be profiling. He plays for the U.S. National Team Development Program down in, well, obviously the States. So we'll talk about him. He's a defenseman there. Plus, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, his scouting report from this past season, and it wasn't too bad. A quietly solid season for the Nuge. Plus, Xavier Bourgault is heading to the Memorial Cup. How did he get there, and how did he do in the playoffs? We've talked a lot about Xavier Bourgault. I was going to make it into the prospect of the week, but let's be real. Xavier Bourgault is the only Oilers prospect playing right now, so it's pretty easy. Thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Oilers and making it your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you find your podcast. Plus, we are also on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube, please do so because, like I said, it's a whole new experience. You get a Nelia Brzgalov jersey over me. And over on this side, I got an OKC Barons jersey, former Oilers affiliate. And we get a little bit more fun. You get a little bit more personable. But anyways, let's move into today's episode. Yes, it is the Ryan episode. And we're going to start off with Ryan Chesley. That name may not exactly be too familiar to many people outside of the draft circles, I guess, as this guy isn't really on the top of a lot of draft boards. But when the Oilers are sitting where they are, you're not really going to get a lot of those players falling down to you. So you're going to have to start with the deep, and I put deep because there's 7 rounds, and realistically most of the deep prospects that you're looking at in the later part of the first round are basically just second rounders. Ryan McLeod was considered a deep cut when they picked him, but honestly I had him going in the middle of the first round. Anyways, Ryan Chesley, yes, he plays for the U.S. Men's National Development Team Program, or the USNTDP, just to make it easier for you. And he has committed to the University of Minnesota next year, so whoever picks him won't have him obviously immediately, but that's the price you pay for prospects. Now, Ryan Chesley is an interesting case. He's a defenseman between all defensemen, but to be all defensemen, I guess. He played mostly with Lane Hudson, who is also going to be going in this year's draft from the USNTDP. I'm just going to call it the National Development Program. The thing about Chesley is he's a fluid skater. He's able to cut through lanes and attack open ice quite well. He uses his crossovers to get into that open areas, but his straight line skating isn't exactly the best. So that's kind of weird to think if you are a solid skater, solid defenseman, you can't really skate forwards or in the straight line too well. But he uses those crossovers, really uses that momentum to create energy and get moving. He's not the fastest guy, but that's okay. He's still that solid skater. So when guys come in on an attack or on an odd man rush, and he's the trailer or the defenseman, he can cut down that speed and cut down that gap super well, just because he's a pretty smart defenseman, and B, he knows how to use his body and his stick. If the guy's getting too, or if the puck's getting a little too far from him and it's impossible for him to poke it away, well, that's okay. He's going to use his body and separate you from the puck. Now, Ryan Chesley isn't exactly the biggest guy right now. Again, he's only, 17, 18, so he's still got a lot of room to go. Well, I say he's not the biggest guy, but again, I'm under 6 feet, so anyone over 6 feet is big to me. He stands 6 feet tall exactly at 194 pounds, so a lot of room to grow there for him. And obviously, playing through the development program, that certainly helps. As I mentioned, he's a positionally strong defenseman as well. He knows where to be. Him and Lane Hudson had a great chemistry and really built off each other. He's a calm skater. As I mentioned, he isn't exactly the best forward skater or straight line skater, but he is calm. He gets to where he needs to be and does very well. He is also able to jump into the play. I know I just kind of really pumped his defensive play on the way he's able to control gaps and get guys out of the lanes. Plus, he can also really control the front of the net and make sure that his goaltender can see the puck. But yes, he's able to also jump into the play as well. There's a half viral clip, not really viral, but if you can find it, there's a clip of Ryan Chesley just cutting through the defenseman, cutting through basically the entire team and getting a chance on goal in the USHL. He has that offensive upside. He attacks open ice. Skating forces the opposition to the outside as well. So even if attackers think that they're going to cut to the middle of the ice and get it past and get it a good scoring chance, Ryan Chesley goes, nah, not exactly. Now, that is most of the positive-ish stuff for Ryan Chesley, but the one thing that he really needs to work on is his decision making with the puck, whether that's a quick shot, a shot from the point, or just getting it off and trying to pass it to the first person he sees. He is a very solid outlet and a zone exiter as a defenseman, but sometimes he just makes plays too quickly with his stick or with the puck, and that's just going to lead to potentially and probably the puck being in the back of the net. So, all these things considered, like I said, realistically, he's a kid. He's got a lot of room to improve, but his numbers are pretty decent. When you take a look at last year now with the Men's National Development Team Program or the National Team Development Program, they play half kind of exhibition-ish type games in certain parts of the season, and then they also play in the USHL, which is basically like the AJHL or the CJHL down in the States. But for Ryan Chesley last season, 59 games played in total with 12 goals, 17 assists, 29 points. So a little bit of an offensive upside to him there, plus 69 penalty minutes. Nice. But we mentioned yesterday with Reed Schaefer of how, not important, I guess, but how interesting those penalty minutes can get up to. In 59 games, 69 penalty minutes. Interesting little note there. So maybe something to take a look at for Chesley, whether or not he's just rather undisciplined or he's got a little bit of a nasty side to him too. Plus, in in the USHL, 26 games played, 5 goals, 10 assists, 15 points. So not too bad of an offensive upside for Ryan Chesley, also getting 45 penalty minutes. He also the other interesting thing for Ryan Chesley is the plus minus. Now I know plus minus is a little bit of a controversial stat line, but when you take a look at what this stat line is for plus minus, maybe not too much. In the whole season in 2021-2022, plus 44. Yeah. And then in the USHL, plus 20. Guys on for a lot of goals. Guys not on for a lot of goals against. So that's pretty impressive. Plus, as I mentioned, he does have that scoring touch. In 2020-2021, in 37 games played, 11 goals, 23 assists for 34 points. So the offensive upside is there. He has a strong two-way game. And that's kind of exciting for any team. Before we move on, just some of the projections that these guys have for Ryan Chesley. Elite Prospects have him at number 35, FC Hockey at 20. Bob McKenzie has him all the way down at 18. McKean's Hockey at 34. Craig Button has him at 56. NHL Central Scouting has him as the 18th best skater in North America. ISS Hockey has him at 20. Recruit Hockey has him at 33. Doper Prospects at 35. Draft Prospects at 46. Smart Hockey has him at 72. Not the biggest fan of him. And Puck Authority at 26. So a little bit all over the map for Ryan Chesley. But that's the draft, baby. That's the beauty of this draft. I would be interested to see Ryan Chesley in an Oilers uniform. I do kind of like the way he plays. Plus, I think he could be kind of that, not necessarily the top pairing defenseman, but a second pairing defenseman who can kind of shut it down in your own end and move the puck forward as well. Kind of like a Brett Kulak with a little bit of more of a scoring touch. But we shall move on to another Ryan in Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, as we're going to talk about his season that was in 2021, 2022. But first, I want to tell you about our partners over at Built Bar. As I told you about their mud pies the other day, we've had some and they are insane. They're the best ones they've made. Genuinely, they're the best ones they have made. You know, our friends over at Built are always coming out with amazing new flavors. Well, this time Built has truly outdone themselves with their brand new mud pie flavor. And for the first time ever, Built is introducing the mud pie flavor in both mud pie in the mud pie Built bar, in a bar, and in the puff. So you can get a bar and a puff of this mud pie stuff. So what is mud pie realistically? What does mud pie taste like as well? If you're a chocolate fan, you better sit down for this, because the new mud pie bar is rich whipped cream and chocolate mousse, okay? Smothered in a 100% real chocolate. Yes, like all Built bars, it is covered in 100% real chocolate. That means they're both healthy and delicious. What else could you ask for? What's great about Built is that all their bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently, and it also provides tons of health benefits as well. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. Head to built.com right now and use the promo code LOCKED15, that is locked 15, to get 15% off your next order. That is built.com, and using the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order. Alrighty, let's move on to Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. I remember when this guy was picked by the Edmonton Oilers back in 2011. I was getting ready for a ball hockey game. I'm like, oh, just wait. I have to see the draft. And then the Oilers picked Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and then they traded for the 19th overall pick, who happened to be... has anyone ever heard of an Oscar Klefbom? Anyways, sorry. That may have been a shot in the heart for a couple of you. But we are talking about Ryan Nugent-Hopkins as Nuge. Oh my. What else can you say? Genuinely, I want to say, not like, oh, I want to say it, but nobody's going to allow me to. I'm going to say to you right now that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is the most underrated first overall pick in the last 10, 15 years. I guess it's over 10 years now. Oh my God, I'm old. But yeah, certainly in the last 15 years, at least 20 years. Let's just call it the 21st century. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has always been one of those quietly efficient hockey players. This past season, 63 games played, which I was looking at his stats. And I'm like, you know what? Nuge just kind of hurts sometimes. And then I was looking at his game totals, and then you're like, oh, he's finished full seasons multiple times. Like, what are we doing here? That is not necessarily the beauty of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, but kind of, I guess, the beauty of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is that he can be so efficient while being so quiet. He is so fantastic. Again, 63 games played, 11 goals. So I'm sitting there and dang, okay, this is going to be a little similar to Yamamoto, where it seemed like he had a good season, but not so much. And then I looked at his assist totals, where he had 39 assists this season, good enough for 50 points, not even close, well, a little close to Ryan Nugent-Hopkins' career best. But 50, just a consistent 50-point getter and quiet 50-point getter. Plus, he set a career high in plus minus at +3. Considering the teams that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins used to play for, that's pretty helpful. In the playoffs, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins had 16 games played, 6 goals. So 6 of his 9 career playoff goals came in the playoffs. 8 assists for 14 points. Man, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, it's so beautiful to see a player like him just flourish in Edmonton, especially seeing how many guys have come in and out of systems and in and out of the organization, the Oilers. There's Jordan Eberle, Taylor Hall, and now Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and that's going to be the big 3 for the Oilers. And then, they traded Taylor Hall. They traded Jordan Eberle. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is the only one that's still here. And that was the story for every team. Every team that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins played on in Edmonton, he happened to be the one who stayed. And there is a reason, because he's so consistent. And being able to see him put up the numbers that he did in these playoffs, so beautiful. Yes, he has 9 total playoff goals. So before this, he had 3 in his career, 6 in these playoffs, bringing up his total to 9. Just a massive playoffs for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. And so, again, beautiful to see, to get past that Anaheim series and all of that happened, and to get back past the decade of darkness, massive for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. But now this is where, and again, I'm bringing back my good old trusty sidekick in goals for and goals against per 60 minutes. And this is where Ryan Nugent-Hopkins really flourished. In all situations, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins had a 4.6 goals for per 60 minutes, and that was good enough for 4th on the team. The interesting thing is that was good for 54th in the entire league, one below Brad Marchand, and he was above Evgeny Malkin, and Malkin played more games this year. Not too bad. The other thing on the flip side, though, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 2.81 goals against per 60 minutes on the team. That was 14th, so not exactly the best. But the Edmonton Oilers didn't really have a fantastic defensive output. I was going to say core, but I feel like that's disrespectful to the players that we have now, because I think there is a lot of potential from that defensive core, defensively, I should say, but just the whole team in general was not fantastic defensively. At 5-on-5, he had a 2.8 goals for per 60 minutes. This is kind of where Nugent's numbers kind of fall off offensively, is at the 5-on-5 spot, 210th in the league when it comes to goals for per 60 minutes. He's not a 5-on-5 guy, which is kind of weird to think about, but he is a PK and power play guy. Shorthanded, the Edmonton Oilers for the Edmonton Oilers, I should say, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins had a 4.93 goals against per 60 minutes. That was good enough for 2nd on the team, behind Brett Kulak. Pretty interesting name there. Good enough as well for 67th in the league for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, shorthanded Maestro. Really, Maestro. I think Maestro is the right way to go with. Defensive Maestro, penalty killing Maestro for the Edmonton Oilers and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Then on the flip side, we talk about killing penalties. How about on the power play? 11.86 goals for per 60 minutes for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Also 2nd on the team on that, behind Jesse Puljujärvi. No, I'm not saying, I'm just saying. But, 2nd on the team in goals for per 60 minutes on the power play for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and 20th in the league. 20th in the league for goals for per 60 minutes. Now, again, that also means that that's an entire team. That is the entire team, not just how many goals is Nuge out there for, or has he scored. It is for the entire team. So that is production, baby. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is the epitome of efficient production. And that is why his 2021-2022 season grade is a B plus. How about that? Just a little. Wish you got a little bit more from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, especially at 5-on-5. So that was what would push him into the A's. But a B plus isn't too bad, especially if you ask me and my college career. But let's move on to our final period of the day, and that is Xavier Bourgault heading to the Memorial Cup. How did he get there, and how did he look through the playoffs? All that and much more in just a second. But first, we have a very important favor to ask of you. We put together a survey so we can learn more about our listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On Podcast. Head to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes a survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. To take your audience survey, head to Locked On Sports or Locked On Podcast, not Locked On Sports, Locked On Podcast.com/survey right now. Thank you so much for your help. Alrighty, I'm grabbing the last board for today as Xavier Bourgault, him and his Shawinigan Cataractes were the first team to punch their ticket to the Memorial Cup. Well, technically the second, because the host team does punch their ticket as soon as they get announced. But the first team to win their league and officially know for sure they are heading to St. John for the Memorial Cup. And one Edmonton Oilers prospect was the driving force behind it, and that was the guy that we keep talking about so often on this show. And like I mentioned, this was going to be a prospect of the week segment, but it's just been Xavier Bourgault basically every week so far. So let's just make it a Xavier Bourgault segment here. Xavier Bourgault's Shawinigan Cataractes have been fantastic in the QMJHL as they beat the Charlottetown Islanders in the QMJHL finals. Now, like I mentioned, they are off to the Memorial Cup. But in these playoffs, Xavier Bourgault has been the man. 16 games played for the Cataractes, 12 goals, 10 assists, 22 points for Bourgault. He is driving the line offensively. He has been a pest to play against. He gets in those dirty areas, forces pucks to the middle of the ice, and forces an issue. That's pretty exciting if you're an Oilers fan. Plus, 5-game winning goals in these playoffs. 5 out of all the games you need to win, which in normally in playoffs, it's about 16. But with the QMJHL, they cut down some of the series as well. And I'm not going to math, so I'm not going to do it right here. But out of what is supposed to be about 16 wins, 5 of them, Xavier Bourgault was the reason why they won. And that continued on in the final against the Charlottetown Islanders. In 5 games played, 5 goals, 4 assists, 9 points in 2-game winning goals. He won half of the games in the series for the Cataracts, a clutch performer. The kid goes out there and just plays and knows what he's going to do with the puck and knows he's going to take over. He is a great hockey player. All the people who are going, oh, you should have picked Jesper. What are you doing? Enough. Please. This kid has shown over and over and over again he has been the right pick so far, and all that needs to happen is that translation to the NHL. Now, I know a lot of people are going, oh, well, Konovalov is left. Now Skinner now Smith and Koskinen are going to leave. So really, the Oilers only have Skinner, Fanti, and Rodrigue in their organization now. That is not necessarily something you're able to really look forward to or predict in the future. But now, if you're an Edmonton Oiler fan and you're sitting here and you realize that Stuart Skinner is going to be the goalie, at least of next season, probably of the future now with Konovalov out, and I'm a Konovalov supporter through and through. But if you take a look at that and just imagine if you now had to bring in Jesper Wallstedt, now in 3+ years, you're going to have to try and decide whether or not which one you're going to sign. Are you going to sign Wallstedt? Are you going to sign Skinner? Now you're in a contract dispute. Now you're up against the cap going, I can't pay both goaltenders $8 million and play them 42 games each. Right? But anyways, we're not talking about goaltenders. We're talking about Xavier Bourgault. The last point I want to mention about Xavier Bourgault is that he does play with top players. So that helps, considering that once he makes the jump to the NHL, he's going to be playing with two of the best players in the world. On the Shawinigan Cataractes, Olivier Nadeau, a Buffalo Sabres prospect, picked, I believe, last year as well. Maverick Bourque, picked last year by the Dallas Stars. A great talent. In fact, he is Xavier Bourgault's line mate on the first line, and basically that 1-2 punch for the Shawinigan Cataractes. Also, Martin Haas. If you are a Washington Capitals fan, you might know a little bit more on him. But just top talent all over, and that doesn't even bring up the guys who are going to be drafted in the future. And the thing about junior hockey is that so many guys just get lost in the system that you take a look at them and you're like, man, what a fantastic junior hockey player. And then it rarely translates to the professionals or the pros, I guess. And that is why the best of the best make it to the NHL. But Shawinigan Cataracts, a fun team to watch. Their first game, June 21st, against the Edmonton Oil Kings. So something to keep an eye out for Oilers fans and, hockey fans in general as the Memorial Cup gets started next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Oilers and making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, make sure you tune in to Locked On NHL. Locked On NHL covers the playoffs like no other. Hear the latest news and opinions from local experts every Monday through Friday. It is free and available wherever you find your podcast. Plus, it's on YouTube as well. Alrighty, everybody, we shall call it there. Thank you so much for taking your time with me. It's been rainy. I don't like it. Let's get some better weather coming up here. Yes, tomorrow we are going to be talking about one more draft prospect, as this guy has become a little bit of a meme over the last couple of days or last couple of weeks, I should say, and that is Jagger Firkus. What a name on the kid, and quite the hair on him as well. So we will talk about him. Plus, we will have another season report card. There we go, for the Edmonton Oilers. So we will call it there, and that'll be our episode today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay safe.